Thursday, September 14th, and this is Geeknights. Tonight we conclude Origins Week with how we got into atheism.
Let's do this. Today sucked.
Now, why would today suck? I had a pretty good day today.
Well, I went to work, and I played DDR at work, as usual, but...
Wait a minute. You already had a better day.
And then, after that, I went to do the finishing fixing of my parents' computer. Now, that sucked ass. Like, you know how if you do something for the first time, like build a computer, and you're learning all kinds of stuff, it's a lot of fun, but then if you do it again and you're not learning anything, it's just a pain in the ass, you know, because all I wanted to do was finish fixing it and get home, but I couldn't. It just took so goddamn long. Like, it took me from like 3 or 4 hours to do this stupid computer. Oh God. But the worst part is, nobody told me, and I didn't know, about ATX 2.0 power supply connectors. Apparently, on newer 64-bit motherboards, the ATX motherboard power connector has 4 more pins on it. So I was trying to put a new motherboard in an old case with an old power supply, and it didn't work. No. I had to go out to the store and buy a new case with a new style power supply to plug in the stupid... Oh, God. Grumble.
See, it just goes to show that while everything in consumer computing technology has increased exponentially in the past 6 years, in terms of the actual, standards or things you need or requirements or prerequisites for everything, there's really no centralized repository of that information.
It's mostly concerning the power supplies. I mean, everything else is sort of a no-brainer. You just match up the letters, You buy one part and you buy another part that has the same set of letters on it, A PCI Express card for a PCI Express slot on the motherboard. You match it up. But for the power supplies, it's not obvious how many watts you need. It's not obvious which power supply you need. You can't tell, like, could I have bought one 100 watts less and saved money? Could I, or did I need the 100 watts more? It's very difficult to find that information, and it depends on so many factors that it's quite difficult to calculate, especially since a lot of the information isn't available anywhere. So it kind of sucks, considering the power supply is such an important part of the computer.
Well, the conventional wisdom was always to buy the largest power supply you could afford.
Yeah, the problem with that now is that
there are 1,000 watt power supplies.
Yeah, there are stupid power supplies now. I mean, like, pretty much, if you're making a desktop computer, I would say that like a 450 to a 550 watt power supply, depending on how many drives and stuff you have, is going to be enough most of the time. But I see people now with like these 750 watt power supplies, 800 watt. It's crazy. And, especially if you don't want to pay for your electric bill, if you get a power supply that's more than you can afford, more than you need, not only are you paying more for the power supply itself, but that's going to, in the long run, be relatively little.
Are you saying that the power supply, the larger wattage power supplies draw more power? Well,
it depends. They might be shittier, because especially a lot of this
stuff. I'm just curious. Do you know how that works? What a power supply does?
Yeah, I know how it does. If you plug more stuff into it, then it draws more power. If you don't plug more stuff into it, then it doesn't draw more power.
All right, so in that case, then why would having a large power supply affect you negatively, other than the fact that you spent a lot of money on it?
Because it seems to me that like a lot of these power supplies with the incredibly large wattage numbers on them are sort of like not, they're not like the high quality looking ones that you get in the, the mean wattage numbers. They look all shady.
So you're saying that the cheap power supplies leak a bunch of power?
Yeah.
Okay.
At least that's what it looks like to me. I really wish that someone would do some research on this so we could, like get a whole bunch of power supplies and get like an Intel machine, an AMD machine, and then like dual cores of each. And then, compare like which power supplies on which boards and how much power they draw and how much is needed with, like, just keep adding hard drives until the power supply goes down and see how many you could add on.
Or, you can look at the specs of, say, your processor and your hard drives and see how much power they draw and then choose accordingly.
But the problem is here, if you do that, is number one, it's not obvious. You have to actually do some work.
Well,
and some
two,
math.
I'm pretty sure it's still there. I haven't looked at AMD's site in a long time, but AMD used to have a large matrix that showed if you have this chip, get a power supply at least this big. If you get this chip, get a power supply at least this big.
The thing is, the video cards nowadays, some of them need their own power, some of them don't. You know, some things draw a lot more than other things do. Like some of the CD-ROMs and DVD burners nowadays draw a lot more power than some other models. And the other thing is, a lot of power supplies lie. Sort of like how those monitors lie about their dot pitch and stuff like that. There are a lot of power supplies out there that are lying. And they just, put kind of fudged up numbers on them because no one can actually call them on it.
Yeah, I guess this is all you, because I haven't even bothered looking at the current standards of computers because I'm not building my computer until next year.
All I'm saying is that if someone knows of a guide...
All you're saying is that you screwed up and you didn't buy what you needed.
So I went to the store and bought one, but
I believe that's the gist of the story, that Scott, the computer expert, bought the wrong component.
Because they changed the technology without telling me.
And you didn't look.
Anyway, there needs to be a guide about power supply purchasing.
Yeah, because anyways is a valid deflection of the fact that you screwed up.
Why are you trying to put this on me?
Because it was your fault.
You would have screwed up also. You didn't know.
What do you mean? I would have looked.
You didn't know. You didn't know.
I would have looked. The thing is,
No.
I haven't even looked at motherboards in months.
You didn't know. That would have screwed you too.
Nah, because you realize every time I build a computer, I do about a month.
But I wasn't building a computer. I was replacing a motherboard and a CPU and a RAM.
So
and
the
an
thing is,
existing computer.
you did a computer upgrade without any planning.
I had the plan.
Apparently, it was a shitty plan.
Doesn't matter.
Your plan was buy a component that won't work, bitch about it on Geeknights.
Screw you. What are you trying to... You're supposed to be on my side.
Yeah, you know what? You give me a hard time. Like if I see something on the internet 5 minutes after you do.
Yeah, that's right. You deserve a hard time for that.
Even though, yesterday, and this is a total aside before we do the news, but Scott is laughing at his computer, and he turns to me and he says, "Did you see this guy in IRC who hacked himself with the loopback address?" And I looked at him, and I said, "Scott, that was on bash.org like 6 years ago."
I wasn't on bash.org 6 years ago.
That was all over the internet 6 years ago. That is...
I wasn't on the internet.
You want to talk about old news? That is like the oldest thing ever.
I wasn't in that crowd. I didn't see that kind of stuff. I was like 6 months too late for that.
Yeah, so... 6...
Like, when that came out, I was still playing, one-player games on my computer.
Anyway, to use Scott's deflection, to move on to our news, we got one awesome news and one news that'll just piss you off. And I'll do the piss-off news first.
Okay.
Because I found out about this just now. Now, I'm not going to go over the exact details because you probably don't care which senator did what or what's going on specifically, but...
Great.
The gist of the story is that the FCC commissioned a study with taxpayer money to figure out if a concentration of media ownership would harm local content and harm local markets. Because the FCC, for a while, has been trying to change the rules to let fewer companies own more TV and radio stations. And newspapers and all.
So Clear Channel and News Corp and all them.
Yeah, basically it would allow...
And Turner.
It would allow the number of companies that run the major media in the U.S. to be consolidated even further.
Monopoly.
I mean, currently, I don't remember the number, so I'm going to make one up, but the last thing I remember reading was that effectively, I think 5 companies controlled 95% of the media in the U.S.
The mass media, at least, yeah.
Yeah, mass media.
TV, radio, newspapers.
Yeah, not counting pirate radio or anything.
Not counting pirate radio, not counting internet, just,
But anyway, the point is the FCC commissioned this study in order to, find out if this would be harmful. When the draft of the study came back, and they discovered that the study said, yes, it would be harmful, their answer was to stop funding the study and then destroy all copies of it.
All right. Obviously, number one, I'm against destroying information of any sort, if possible.
I have a much simpler point. The FCC is supposed to be doing the common good, and it seems like they're not doing the common good, they're doing their agenda.
Well, no, that's obvious also, but here's the thing. If you just want, if you already know what you want to do and you just want to create evidence, why fund a real study? Why not just write something that looks like a study?
You want to know why? Because when the FCC's been trying to pull some of these shenanigans recently, Congress has been saying no.
Good. They're doing their job.
So the FCC wanted evidence. And when the evidence wasn't there, they just got rid of it and swept it under the rug. Now, the cool thing is, the only reason we know about this is because someone in the FCC who was disgruntled sent a copy of the study along with all of this stuff to Senator Barbara Boxer, who you may remember for periodically being very awesome.
And periodically being crazy.
Yeah.
One of those half and half senators.
She's one of the few senators who seems to actually at least stand up for what she believes in, regardless of what people pay her to say.
Yep, that's pretty much it.
But yeah, there's not much more to it than that. The FCC commissioned a study. The study didn't say what they liked, so they destroyed the study and tried to pretend it never happened.
All I'm going to say is I hope that disgruntled guy gets transferred to other federal agencies and disgruntles all of them.
I hope that disgruntled guy becomes president.
That too. He should be the president. He should be like, I'm the disgruntled guy. Vote for me. I'm disgruntled. I'll vote for you. Everyone vote for disgruntled guy.
Now, of course, politics and, our actual lives, that's not real news. The real news is that the Wii was announced.
Whee! Whee! Whee!
Oh my god, I remember my mom, she'd be like, Whee!
So, last night, at least last night in the U.S., it was like 2 p.m. in Japan, they had the Japanese Wii press conference. And,
now, if you have read the coverage of the Wii thing, I suggest now that you read it again because all of the preliminary reports were mostly horseshit.
Yeah, well, no. The only preliminary report that there was a...
All the ones I saw were like, it's going to come with 2 emotes, and it's going to be...
Well, here's what happened, is the New York Times had an article ready because they had the inside scoop because they're the New York Times. And the information in the New York Times article was not all of the information, but the information in it was correct. And they put it out a little bit early. And then the Seattle newspaper picked it up and put it online a little bit early. So everyone knew the price and the release date of November 19th and the price of $250 early, before the press conference. But anyway, the Japanese press conference was at 2 p.m. in Japan last night, which it's going to be 2 p.m. in Japan pretty soon from the recording time of this. And they're getting it on December something, like December 2nd or something like that. I forget. I don't have the date in front of me. For all about the same price. And all I got to say is, wow, we get it first. Pund.
It seems, one, that all of the companies are kind of focusing much more on America than Japan, which is understandable from an economic perspective because the gaming market in America is freaking massive.
Yep.
Though it still surprises me that Sony turned their back on probably their most loyal fans.
Well, I think what Nintendo's starting to realize is that, they support Japan so well with a whole mess of games and a whole mess of everything, and America gets the shaft, and that's why they don't kind of go with the Nintendo. Whereas the PlayStation and the Xbox get like these shit ton of Americans.
You know who gets the shaft? Europe.
Oh, everyone
All
else.
3 companies gave Europe the big finger and said, yeah, you'll get our system someday.
Yeah, well, everyone else gets the major shaft no matter what. Like think about the people in South Africa are like getting Xbox 360s now. Think about that.
Or then there's the people in Brazil who are playing their Master Systems.
Yeah, way to go, Master Systems and Sega Genesis in Brazil. And Sega Saturns, possibly.
So anyway, I'm sure many of you probably haven't bothered looking
we're not
at the
going to
news.
rattle off all the informations.
But the relevant bits.
Yeah, the relevant bits. It comes with Wii Sports. Hooray!
I think this is a great move on Nintendo's part because, well, one, now when it's sitting in the store and Mother, who just now found out she can't get a PlayStation 3, sees that Nintendo thing is real cheap, and it comes with a game.
Yep. The other thing is, I was kind of on the edge about Wii Sports, because it looked like it wasn't much of a game, but I kind of wanted it, But I didn't really think that it was going to be worth paying out, a game price for it. Like, not even $30. It was maybe worth $20 from what I had seen. But they added bowling and boxing to it, which is awesome, because I guarantee bowling is going to be the most fun. And they're giving it away with the system. So it's like, hooray, that's just what I wanted.
It also resets a precedent that has long disappeared. Consoles don't come with games anymore.
Well, what happens is they do come with games, but not at the original release. Like, the GameCube didn't come with a game at release, but then eventually they had, like, buy the GameCube that comes with Wind Waker, buy the GameCube that comes with Metroid Prime, buy the GameCube that comes with bongos, Like the N64, they did the same thing. There was the N64 that came with nothing, and later on there was the N64 that came with Pokemon Stadium, and the one that came with Donkey Kong 64, and all that stuff.
But none of the modern systems. This is the only system now that comes with a game.
Yeah, they really should bring, and it comes with a controller and a nunchuck. They really just need to throw a memory card. I mean, and all that stuff in there. It'd be cool.
Yeah, I think it comes with enough. It comes with more than I expected.
It definitely comes with a lot, and I hear it's going to be profitable. So I think what they did is they put in as many accessories and stuff as they could without, we'll still keeping a profit going.
Yep. Now, the actual Wiimotes are kind of pricey, but they're not more expensive than, like, Xbox 360 wireless controllers by far.
Yeah.
So,
and, you're going to have to buy them eventually, so whatever. Now, here's some other good, really crazy news. The GameCube version of Zelda Twilight Princess is going to come out like a week before the Wii. And when the Wii comes out, the Wii version of Zelda Twilight Princess will come out at the same
now
time.
this is, in my opinion, while it is somewhat evil,
it pisses me off, like, God damn you, but
it's brilliant. I cannot.
It's a brilliant move of business, because the thing is, who's going to buy the GameCube Zelda? Why would you buy that when you can get the Wii one? And and the Wii is backwards compatible, so why, so many people, pretty much everyone has a GameCube is going to get a Wii, eventually. I'm pretty sure. So, who's going to buy that GameCube Zelda? Not many people. Well, if they can get it a week before they can get the Wii one.
A whole week.
They might do it, because you could beat that game in a week, probably.
Yeah, I think
you couldn't do everything in the game.
I foresee a small but dedicated number of fans buying it for the GameCube, beating it, and then not buying the new Zelda game again for the Wii right away, but buying it used later.
Yeah, I see a lot of people buy the GameCube one, play it. When they get a Wii, they'll put it in the Wii because they get backwards compatibility and continue playing it. And then, like, way in the future, because there's no way that there's not going to be a point in the future of this world where that is, before Armageddon, where you will not be able to get a copy of Zelda Twilight Princess.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not going to be a hard game to get ever. You can go to the store and buy Wind Waker now for like 10, 15, 20 bucks. So you can go to the store and get Twilight Princess at any time.
Now, the other interesting bit was that it looks like, unless Sony drops the ball again, the Wii is going to come out a few days after the PlayStation 3.
I am still not confident the PlayStation 3 is going to come out.
Oh, me either. But
a few days before the Wii.
I wonder what Nintendo's motivation is. I can think of a lot of ideas as to why they're choosing to do it that way, and they all seem plausible. But I wonder what Nintendo's thinking, because they're not stupid.
Well, I think what it is because they're focusing on the U.S., where they're going to release most of their systems. They want to make sure that they get all the systems they can to the U.S., so that's why they're going there first. And also because in the U.S. we have a thing called Thanksgiving, which they don't have, in Japan, and Black Friday and all that. And then...
At least not the way Americans have it.
Right. And then, a few weeks later, they're going to go to Japan with all the rest of the systems. So if they don't have enough, it might be okay to shortchange Japan a little. But I think they'll have enough.
Well, there's also... people on Slashdot have been talking about this, and it seems plausible. And in the very least, even if it wasn't intentional, the effect will probably happen nonetheless. But when there are widespread PS3 shortages, and many people go to the store before Christmas trying to buy the new PlayStation 3 for their kid, and they can't get one, and then they see the Wii, they hear, oh, the Nintendo system came out just now. Hey, those are in the stores. I can get one of those.
Yeah. Who knows? All I'm saying is it's pre-order time. Everyone, pre-order your Wiis.
Yep. It also might have the effect of the PlayStation 3 comes out. There's the press frenzy because, the system actually comes out. Then the Wii comes out. The PlayStation press disappears because now the Wii is the hot press.
It could be.
That, I think, is what Nintendo's intention is. Or the other possibility that someone posited on Slashdot and Fark, two different people, I'm pretty sure, was that Nintendo is confident that the PlayStation 3 is going to slip its shipping date. And as a result, they'll get the announcement of, wait, why is Nintendo going after the PlayStation? Then later, oh no, the PlayStation slipped, now the Nintendo's coming out first. And they get more press as a result.
Yeah, that's my guess right there. There's no way. I mean, come on. There's no way the PS3s are going to show up with games to play in November. I mean,
yeah, did anyone ever report if the finalized dev kit ever got out?
Yeah, it's like, what? No one's finished a PlayStation game. No, it's like, what are they going to do?
What are you thinking?
I mean, they've got working Wiis that they're traveling around the world with, letting people play.
Yeah.
Has anyone played a PlayStation 3 other than a game developer or a Sony employee? Anyone? There's no way.
I mean,
I just don't believe that they could have it.
From what I've read, they were pretty much done testing the Wii itself, and they've been testing the controllers and making sure the controllers are perfect for a long time now.
Yeah, they've been spending like months and months just honing and not, developing.
It seems like the PlayStation 3 is spending the rest of this time developing and not so much the honing.
Not so much with the honing, no.
I mean,
of course, I did hear one rumor that the Wii is going to ship with like a firmware update disc. But
ooh. That's a good idea.
Well, it's like, you buy it and then you put this disc in it to get it updated right away.
That is a good idea for a lot of
reasons.
reasons.
Well, no, what it means is that they didn't have time to flash them first, and that you have to flash it when you buy it, so they threw a disc in every box.
Well, what it also means is that they anticipate minor tweaks coming up, but they didn't want to push back the date, and they came up with a fairly elegant solution to that.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, better than forcing a download or something unreliable.
Yeah, because a lot of people, the Wii is going to be all about the connecting to the internets, but a lot of people aren't going to connect theirs to the internet because they don't know they can't even get their wireless laptop to work.
And that's one thing about Nintendo. They'll always do, they'll try new things and they'll do interesting things like that, the internet access, but they always make sure to take care of all of their fans.
Yeah, so even if you don't use all the stuff, you're taken care of. A lot of people out there with DSs playing one-player games, not using Wi-Fi, not using nothing.
Anyway, things of the day. Since we don't want to go too in-depth on the Wii.
Since Rim forgot to put the things of the day in the show yesterday.
Yeah, well, the thing is, because we had a guest on the show, Emily, I recorded the things of the day as a separate bit, which we usually do when we have a guest, but we hadn't had a guest in a while, so I forgot to take that little thing of the day wave and stick it in the middle.
Good job.
So as a result, I'm going to put yesterday's things of the day. One, it'll be in the archive when we eventually release, season 1 of Geeknights. Eventually, I'm going to refix the episode. And additionally, I'm going to put the things of the day as a special probably this weekend. Anyway, we do have things of the day for today. And because they're part of the main bit, there's no way they will not be in the show.
Hooray.
And mine is also very, very quick and somewhat relevant to the topic at hand. Now, a while ago in Afghanistan, an American soldier was killed. This American soldier happened to be a member of the Wicca religion. And as he was dead, his family, and as he had wished, wanted a pentacle on his military tombstone. There was all sorts of rabble-rousing by people who said, you can't do that. You can't put that on there. It's not an official recognized symbol. And there was a shitstorm, and then it disappeared.
Atheists have a symbol. Wiccas can have a symbol.
6 have a symbol.
Yeah.
There are, I think, 32 symbols that are recognized by the military. And just now they haven't agreed to put it on the actual tombstone yet, as far as I can tell, but that's coming. But his memorial plaque they already made it a pentacle that they've put on his memorial plaque. And
hooray.
I'm just glad, every now and then I get angry about how annoying politics are in this country, America, and how things are going, and whenever I get frustrated like that, it's always nice that at least every now and then someone does something right or something smart.
Yeah, they let us win those small, inconsequential, completely meaningless battles when we lose all the actual meaningful ones. Awesome.
Hey, it's something.
It's something that doesn't really matter except,
You know what well, one, I've always noticed that the American military throughout history has always been in many ways much more progressive than society in general. I mean, when it came to blacks during, after the Civil War and during segregation, the military was one of the first organizations to say, we need soldiers. I don't care what color you are. Here's a gun.
Well, the military is sort of like, you can look at it if you want, the American military, as like the experiment for American society. It's like where they try shit out before they try it on the real people. They try out all our
the real people.
It's like the internet. They made the internet, and then they gave it to the citizens, and then they let black people in, and then they let the black people in the regular society. It's like they see how shit works in the military.
I think it's much more simple. I think many of the people in the military, by nature of their job, are very pragmatic and practical when it comes to doing whatever works in a situation.
You're not supposed to give a reasonable explanation. You're supposed to give a funny one. What's wrong with you?
All right, fine. You know what? Here's the funny bit. I'm going to join the military and die somewhere in some hellhole, just so a flying spaghetti monster can be on my tombstone.
Damn straight. Okay.
So what do you got?
So, you know the kind of music with like the Japanese surf guitar and the flute. You know, you get what that sound of music that they make?
I do. I don't know if our listeners do.
Well, you're going to listen to it because it's my thing of the day. Some guy, the great Japanese guitarist Takeshi Terayuchi, and his band, the Bunnies, have played many classical melodies with the Japanese surf guitar of awesome. It's sort of like, if some guy does a bunch of rock versions, this guy did surf guitar versions. It's way cool, and there's a lot of songs, and they're all free MP3 downloads that are legitimate, so the awesome. He's got the Swan Lake, which is my favorite.
Doesn't he have a Tetris song in there?
Well, he has the Fur Elise. No. Hungarian Dance Number 5 is one of the Tetris songs, isn't it? I think. I forget exactly how that one goes.
Don't bring something up if you don't know.
Hungarian Dance Number 5, I'm pretty sure is in...
Are you?
Are
you sure?
I'm pretty sure it's in Tetris.
You gonna stand by that?
I'll bet on it 75%.
75 cents?
Yeah.
You'll bet 75 cents.
75%.
So you're not going to bet money because you're not sure?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
He's got the Fur Elise on here, Saber Dance. It's good stuff. You should listen to it. It's awesome free music. Go download
Actually,
it.
if you all have heard the Saber Dance. When you hear it, you'll go, oh, it's that song.
Yeah, that's generally how a lot of classical songs are. It's like, people hear it. Like, someone will go, dun, 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 and you'll go, I fucking know that song. And you'll be like, yeah? What song is it? And only smart people go, In the Hall of the Mountain King. Everyone else goes, I have no idea, but I know the song. Just like Chromati episode 2. You
know the story of, like, the story behind the song In the Hall of the Mountain King? Like, what story the song is trying to portray?
Oh, there was a mountain, and there was a hall in the mountain with the king in it, and there was, like, an elf or some shit going to meet him or something, and died, and I don't know.
What?
I don't know, I'm just making shit up.
That's not it at all. I just wondered. Maybe I'll do a show on something like that someday.
You do a whole show on the Hall of the Mountain King.
Yeah.
I'll talk about this old DOS game I played that was had that song was the only music, and you were like this elf guy walking around with a net, and you would capture things, and then you would answer questions, and then...
So it's not like that DOS or that ASCII dwarf game that our people in our forums are playing.
No, it's not like that at all. This is like a children's game that was on an IBM PS1. Anyway.
Anyway, the main bit today, if you couldn't tell from the opener, is we're going to... Because we couldn't come up with what we were going to talk about today. We
had no idea.
We thought Origins Week was great. And then last night we finished the episode, and I turned to Scott and I said... What are we going to do tomorrow? And he didn't say anything, and I didn't say anything, and then we both simultaneously said, fuck.
Yeah, it was like we were going to do the origins of how we got into sports, and I was going to be like,
I was born in Detroit.
I'm a hereditary fan of New York sports teams.
Yep.
The end.
And I talk about like how I got into music as a musician, but Scott's not a musician, or...
I'm more of a musician than most people, but less of a musician than musicians.
I mean, there weren't many things that we could both talk about that any of you would care about.
Yeah.
And then
Rim was enlightened.
I thought of it only because, I'm not sure why I thought of it, actually.
Probably our crazy forums.
Possibly.
This episode is basically fan service for the forum folk, and if you like this episode, you'll probably like the forums, so go join.
Yeah, the forums are getting to the point where I can't deal with them on my own anymore.
Yeah, like it used to be, like...
Let me put it this way. If Scott and I stopped doing Geeknights, I'll bet the forums would keep going for a while. A long while.
The thing is, there are some forums I go to on the internet where I read only like a few stories, and there's some forums I go on the internet where no one's there. Our forums are like on this borderline now where they're growing... It used to be that I could read every story. Now I can still read every post on our forums, but it's a lot, and I'm getting tired. So eventually, real soon, probably in a few weeks, I won't be able to read the whole forums anymore. I'll have to let some of it go.
Well, the thing is, you all know Mr. Period. There's a good chance that he will be joined by Mr. Question Mark, Mr. Comma, Mr. Semicolon in the future, because we and Mr. Period are not enough to handle the forums anymore.
No, it is getting out of control.
But we digress. Therefore, no God. Okay.
There be no God. None.
Anyway.
Zero.
The topic here, we're not going to talk about philosophy.
Yeah, we're not going to argue for or against atheism. We're going to talk about how we became to have the beliefs that we do have.
And first, to define the
That was a
term-
great sentence.
That was beautiful.
That was awesome.
Before we do anything, I want to define the terms, and I'll use the definitions, the simplified definitions that we are going to use now, because this is one of those topics where the exact nature of what you say means a lot. I mean, there's a huge difference between saying there is a God, there might be a God, there can't be a God, or there probably isn't a God.
And there isn't.
There's a huge demarcation there.
Hey, you could even get more specific. You'd be like, there never was, there is now, there
Well,
isn't
then-
now, there used to be, there will be,
And
there
then,
might, yeah,
if you really want to get into it,
there might have been, but there isn't now.
if you guys really want to have this argument someday, or you really want to learn a lot about this, read up on agnosticism, as in what agnosticism really means, and then Gnosticism and what that really means, and then solipsism and what that really means. And it's all philosophy, which Scott says is BS, and I say is the only truth.
Yeah. Oh, and also I just want to note that Richard Dawkins has a new book. I don't know if it's out yet or just recently out or coming soon called,
You know what?
called The God Delusion, which you should read.
I thought you were going to mention a different book that he wrote a while ago.
No, the one that he's kind of like the newest hot one. The God Delusion is his new one.
Nah. But anyway, we're not talking about spirituality, personal belief. We're mostly talking about atheism and theology in regards to religion. Now, I posted in the forums the thing, but to reiterate, spirituality or Gnosticism are much more in line with philosophy and thought exercises than with practical applications, because they tend to fall along the lines of, there may be a God, or I feel that there is a God, or I feel that there is something out there, but I can't prove it, therefore it's not scientific, and it's not something that can apply to the real world, or it doesn't have to exist because I exist whether or not I believe in it.
Yeah.
But religion is when you take that and you put a specific belief behind it. It's no longer there might be a creator or there might be a demiurge. It's now there is a specific God named Bob and he lives in the sky and his son ate peas on Thursday and that's why dogs have tails.
People only exist because a flying spaghetti monster created us with his noodly appendage.
So just don't forget while we talk about this that we're talking about religion, not philosophy, not
Yeah.
spirituality. Those are different topics.
So anyway,
You want to start or shall I?
I'll start because I'm a Jew.
Yeah, you are also much closer to anti-theism than I am.
Yeah, slightly. But anyways, I was born a Jew from Queens.
Now,
It's a
culturally,
nice Jewish boy. Well,
by blood and by culture.
well, I was, yeah. But I mean, I was born that way. But then, I was a Jew. And it kind of just like I didn't think about it that much. I wasn't like an Orthodox Jew, or it's not. It was kind of like, yeah, I'm Jewish. I didn't think about God. I didn't, think about religion. I thought about video games and cartoons and shit. When I was a little kid. And I mean, we went to the synagogue and we did the Jew stuff, but I didn't think much of it. It was just like a thing we do, like, other kids did church and we did Jewish temple because that's the way it is. These people do this, those people do that. Who cares? And I was a little kid and I didn't care. And then, like I just lived my life as if I wasn't very religious. I didn't believe in anything magical, but I didn't, say, I am an atheist, ha 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 ha. I just kind of didn't do or care. I even did a lot of stuff hanging out with Jews and going to Israel and doing Jew trips and making Jew friends and going to Jew temples and celebrating Jew holidays, but I didn't really ever, believe strongly or at all. It was just kind of eh.
Now, what about things like Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or Hanukkah Harry?
Well, Hanukkah Harry was just a joke that I discovered in high school, and it was always just kind of a joke.
I just like saying Hanukkah Harry.
Yeah. Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, Tooth Fairy, all that stuff. Like, when I was a little kid, I don't think there was ever a point at which I just said yes, where I believed that it was true. I was pretty much, like, questioning it. I was like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know about that. See, that was one thing, is that the problem with I've noticed that lately there are a lot of Jewish atheists. There are like even like atheist rabbis. Like, they're rabbis, but they don't believe that there's anything supernatural. It's crazy.
Well, I just note that we go to conventions a lot, and there are many times when we'll meet like a webcomic artist or we meet someone cool we know, and they're obviously Jewish.
Mhm.
And Scott will say something like, "Hey, something something Jew," and they'll be like, "Yep, something something Jew," and then Scott will pause a minute and he'll say, "Atheist Jew?" And without fail, they've always said right on or yes or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's. Well, I think my current theory, not even
Well,
theory, hypothesis.
Non-theistic Jew.
Yeah,
We'll put it that way.
my current hypothesis about the atheist Jews is that Judaism is really a religion about studying this old and false book full of good stories. And as a result, modern Jews strongly emphasize to their children education. Like, education is the most important thing in the world. Like, a Jewish mother cares more about the grades of their children. You know, I think the only thing they care more about the grades of of their children is the health of their children. It's like, are you eating well? Did you get an A? It's like that's the list.
Now you look a little thin. You only got an A minus.
Yeah, I know, right? So as a result, the Jewish kids, you know, especially recent ones, my generation and newer, are very, very educated. And when you're very, very educated, you tend not to be as religious. You know, I mean, sure, there are very educated religious people, but as a whole, you know, if you look, most non-religious people tend to be more educated.
Well, actually,
that's why it's only a hypothesis. I don't have a causation. I only have a correlation.
I bring up a couple of interesting studies over the years. There have been many studies showing that the prison population is, in America at least, the most religious group of people in the country.
Mm-hmm.
If people in prison are more likely to be Christians than they are to be anything else.
But is it because they're in prison and then they become religious, or they're?
See, it's hard to say.
Yeah. See, there's another correlation without causation. You know.
But there are other correlations, like the higher degrees a person has, the less religious they tend to be.
Yep. Stuff like that.
Yep.
I remember reading this great article about a guy who was a super Christian, and then he got many PhDs in like theology, and then he just had to become an atheist, and he was kind of sad about having to, you know, stop believing.
Of course, then there was the Emperor Julian of Byzantine, who was sent to study Christianity, and he studied it more and more and more, and the more he studied it, the more he thought it was wrong. But instead of saying, "I'm an atheist," he said, "I'm going back to worship the Roman gods. I'm a pagan."
Yeah. All right. Anyway.
And then he got killed.
The point is that, you know, I never really believed strongly in any of it. I mean, I'm a huge fan and still a huge fan of, like, you know, culture and heritage of Jews, because I think everyone should be a fan of their own heritage and culture.
I never would have guessed from the Israeli flag that you hang in your bedroom.
It's not there anymore, actually, but yeah, I bought it when I like flags. So when I went to Israel, there was an Israeli flag, and it's a cool flag. So I bought it and I hung it up. It was, you know, some people thought it was like in college. I remember some Israeli came up to me and he's like, "Hey, you from Israel?" And I'm like, "No, I just bought it there. It's a flag. I think it's cool."
Yeah, well,
I wasn't trying to make a statement or anything.
Actually, in my bedroom in high school for the longest time, I had a Russian flag. Not the Soviet Russian flag, but the modern Russian flag.
Yeah.
Because I was a fan of their hockey team.
But see, it's not as cool as the one with the sickle and the hammer and the stars. And
yeah, I know.
Yeah,
but
anyway.
I couldn't find the communist one easily to purchase. But I had a Russian flag and a Canadian
because
flag.
you'd only find that in like a commie store. Anyway.
Or on the internet.
So not ever really having believed strongly, you know, I just kind of didn't care. And then, you know, in recent years, like I'd say within the past 4 to 5 years, mostly at college, you know, religion started doing bad things. We started seeing terrorists blow shit up. We started seeing...
I think it's more that you noticed religion was doing bad things.
That also, you know, and I noticed, I was heavily influenced by, like, you know, Randy, which I started reading.
The Amazing Randy, James Randi, Randy.org.
Yeah, and I started noticing all these, you know, like I used to just ignore that stuff, you know, like, it was like at one point I had the attitude of, I'm not sure these herbal medicines are doing anything. I don't believe in that. I don't, you know, and other people would be like, no, what are you talking about? And then I was like, wait a minute, they really don't. These people are crazy. And I just started seeing, you know, faith and just belief in stuff without proof causing all sorts of harm everywhere. So I'm like, all right, now I'm pissed off, so I'm actually going to care. It was like I was an atheist, but I wasn't really. I just didn't care at all. I didn't even have an opinion. And then I started noticing that the non-atheist was causing a problem. So I had to, you know, move slightly to the other side and go, grrr.
So basically you were an atheist who became also a skeptic.
Yeah, something like that.
See, my story is much more complicated, partly because on my father's side, the family is Catholic from Belgium.
Mm-hmm.
though I don't think my father ever actually believed in it.
Yeah, I don't. It's kind of hard to gauge how much my family believes.
And I know my mom was both a hippie and a witch and a pagan and all sorts of fun stuff when she was younger. And I don't think she ever quite gave up on all that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I lived in Detroit. I was born in downtown Detroit, which basically meant being a frail, nerdly white boy, there is no way I could go to public schools. No offense to Detroit, but those schools would have killed me. So my parents spent a lot of money to send me to a Catholic school. And as a result, I, had to attend religion classes, and I had to go to church, and we had to go to church every Sunday, and I never actually really believed it. I mean, I kind of, when I was very young, like elementary school, like first grade, I kind of just, my parents would say, hey, we got to go to church, and I'd go to school, and they'd be like, oh, Jesus did this, and I just didn't question it, because, teachers know everything. And then I started noticing, right around second grade, that a lot of it didn't make sense, particularly this whole heaven business. And
I remember, like, the weirdest thing was that when I was in school, like public school, learning history, right? And then we'd go to Hebrew school and learn history. And I'd be like, all right, I try to match up the years. I'd be like, all right, so did Moses come before or after this? I'd be like, the Egyptians are doing this. I could never match up the timelines. And then eventually I figured it out. Oh, those things didn't happen.
Yep.
Those are just made up. Oh.
But
that's why it doesn't match.
The things that really struck me was that, one, if there's this all-powerful God, why does he care if I waste 2 hours of my Sundays, my free time, to sit in a box and listen to someone talk about things I don't care about? And then give me some bread and a little bit of wine. And then, more importantly, the idea of heaven was what bothered me the most, because I thought about it, and I realized that the concept of heaven was frightening to me. It sounded like the most horrid, boring, terrible thing that could ever happen. Because according to at least Catholic mythos, heaven is where you will go and sing the hosannas to the highest forever. Basically, if you are good here, you'll get sent to heaven where you can spend the rest of your life worshiping someone. And at that point, I thought straight up, and this is like second grade, if that's what heaven is, I'd rather go to hell. And then I thought about hell, and I realized, wait a minute, I'm only on Earth for at most like 130 years. Probably more like 60 or 70. So let's say I do bad things in this God's eyes. All right. If I do bad things, he's going to send me to hell forever? Forever? Because I did one bad thing? Even though I did a million bad things, forever seems like a lot for a million bad things. Because it's infinitely bigger than a million. And then I thought, but the whole idea is kind of stupid, because if there's a God and he made me, why would he make me just so he can throw me in fire? And then from there, I pretty much thought, oh, there probably just isn't a God.
See, I think that's one of the reasons that I just kind of...
It didn't make sense.
Yeah.
And the more I studied it, the more I thought about it, and this is like a second grader, so most of the answers I got were, I'd ask a teacher who was a nun, and they would give me some bullshit answer. And then I'd say, that answer doesn't make sense, and they'd hit me, or they'd say, well, don't question it.
I think part of the reason I stayed mildly Jewish for so long was that they don't really, like, at least in the conservative Jewish temples, and all that stuff that I went to, they don't really teach, like, stuff like that. I mean, what you learn in Hebrew school, other than people saying, there is God, he's they didn't even say he. They said there's a God, it's everywhere, it's omnipotent, it's omniscient, whatever. They don't really say, like... yeah, Adam and Eve is true, believe it. Yeah, all this stuff is true, believe it. They say, let's learn Hebrew. Let's learn the Hebrew alphabet. Let's memorize these songs. Let's sing and dance. Let's eat food. You know, they don't really teach all this kind of stuff that I was able to question, at least not at the age that I was still, going and attending and all that stuff. So there really wasn't anything to make me go, wait a minute, you're full of shit. Because they didn't say anything. They just taught me the Hebrew language. They only taught me how to read it. I don't understand most of the words, but...
yeah, the Catholics were much different in that they would say, like, literally, this is what happens, and this is this, and Jesus did this, and God did this, and the Holy Spirit is this. And it didn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, the worst that we would get is, Moses parted the sea. And I was like... it was only like a little things here and there, which I kind of ignored, didn't really care.
Well, you know what it's like? It's like when you
watch...
watch...
Ten Commandments is a pretty good movie, let me tell you.
When you watch Utena, and something fucked up happens, and you just think, it's anime, stuff like that happens.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was
You don't
like.
question it.
They tell me this story about, two people and, one guy cheats on another guy and then guy does a bad thing and then, and it's like other than like Noah's Ark, which I guess, is kind of believable because I didn't imagine like some, non-possible flood. I imagined a normal flood. So, it was kind of like, they tell these stories and I would imagine them in a way that, made sense without, craziness.
See, I'd imagine
going
them, and
on.
I couldn't possibly conceive of a way for them to make sense in a rational world.
See, like the Noah's in the Ark, like I imagine that there weren't that many people because it was so early in the history of the world that they were like all in one spot and then it all got flooded in one area where they were and then the flood went away.
So I remember one day, this was second or third grade. I don't
The
remember.
two animals, though, I just kind of didn't think about that. The two of every animal.
I just remember there was a point at which I was sitting down, I was in church, I didn't want to be there, and it was hot and it sucked. And I just thought, you know what? There's no God. And then I thought, all right, God, last chance. If you're there, do something awesome right now. Otherwise, you don't exist. And nothing happened. And I thought, all right. And the next day I told my parents, yeah, so I don't want to go to church anymore. And my parents didn't seem to care at all. And I think like I went to catechism when I moved out of public school or out of private school into public school for like a month. And then I was like, this is horseshit. I'm not going to this anymore.
Yeah, my parents, like, I don't think my dad really cares, and I'm pretty sure my grandpa doesn't believe in anything anymore.
I know at least my grandma was really religious.
Yeah, my grandma's not really religious, but I do think that she believes in some sort of, spiritual God.
Well, my
and
grandma
stuff,
was
and-
always warning me when I was a little kid to not get into all that occult stuff because they'll steal my soul and sacrifice me to the devil.
Yeah.
And all I thought was...
My grandma says, why don't you find and marry a nice Jewish girl?
Yeah,
that's
what's
what,
the
that's
difference?
what they say.
You get marry a nice Jewish girl. I get the devil will get you.
Yeah.
Don't do that occult stuff. Of course, all I thought as a kid was, but that occult stuff sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Because I
Yeah.
gotta say, I really like a lot of the cultural aspects of not so much the modern religions, but the older religions. Like, there are things in them that I really like. And
I like cultures in general.
so, I mean, I do a lot of silly things. Like, whenever I drink wine, I always leave a little bit of my glass, which nominally is for the fairies, which I know, yeah, they're not out there, but I like to think, like, it's cool. It's kind of a cultural thing, an affectation.
It's because you're a fairy.
And I'm very philosophical. I think a lot. I have existential crises pretty much every day. But I think a lot about philosophy and what am I and where did I come from. But the thing is, no religion, there's never been evidence in all of history for the existence of any of the supernatural things that any known religion has ever claimed.
Never.
Yet, every religion known to man, you can find historical origins of it. And those historical origins have always been secular. You can see the political and the cultural and the social forces that brought about these religions.
Yeah, like the Old Testament is like the easiest one because, like, okay, here's this book. Let's see where it came from. Let's see where each part came from. Oh, well, look, here's a part that's called an apocryphal text that didn't make it, that used to be in the book. Oh, here's a part, Deuteronomy, that was written by these guys, the Deuteronomists, in year X. They were just some guys.
Well, here's a really, really useful anecdote because I got in trouble for laughing out loud in class and I wouldn't tell my teacher why in high school.
Mm-hmm.
But we were sitting in a social studies class and we were talking about India and like reverence for cows
Upanishads.
and things like that.
You know where that comes from.
Now,
You
someone
know where I got that from, right?
someone in class.
You know why I said Upanishads.
I'm just letting that go.
Why don't you share with the class why I said Upanishads?
So,
Oh, come on, you suck.
we'll let the forums meter that one out.
All right, we'll see if they guess why that came to mind suddenly.
So we were talking about, and he's talking about the cows were sacred, but that came about because invading forces realized that, I forget the exact details, that the cows were more useful in a famine situation for their milk and their dung than they were for their meat. And if you killed them, it was a waste of a resource. So they're sacred now. That way people won't kill them and people will be better off.
A lot of stuff in the Old Testament's like that too. Like, don't eat pig was because in those days,
Trichnosis.
if you ate a pig, you got trichinosis.
But the thing was,
that's
I don't
why
remember the
it's
details.
unkosher to eat a pig.
I don't remember the details, but I remember that we had this discussion, and then this girl raised her hand in class, and she said, and I remember it very clearly, well, So you're saying that their religious thing just came from what some guy said to trick them? And the teacher says, yeah, we have a lot of evidence of this. And she says, well, why do they still believe it? Didn't anyone tell him? And I remember that she was a Christian. And I started laughing because I just wanted to stand up and say, Christians are just Jews. They were just uprisings in Judea. They came from this cult. We know exactly where it came from. It's no different. What the hell? Oh my God. It was so ironic.
Your religion came from some guy just saying stuff too. Aha.
Or it might have come from some guy writing stuff.
Oh. Doesn't matter either way.
Yeah.
It could have come from some girl writing stuff.
Yeah, but in terms of all this, I mean, I never believed in Santa Claus or the Easter Bunny or any of that at all. I pretty much knew from the start it was my parents, at least from the moment I was sentient.
Yeah.
And I played along because I knew that my parents were trying to do this thing, and I kind of gathered what it was, like the idea of it. And also I had a little brother, and I wasn't going to ruin it for him. So I pretended to go along with it, but I knew. And I always used to set little, like, traps because I knew it would catch my parents. So, like, I'd string tripwires the night before Christmas in the living room.
Yeah.
Just because I knew it would trip my dad up.
The only thing really magical about Hanukkah is where the hell did she hide those presents in the basement? I couldn't find them. I looked down there the day before. Where were they?
See, I knew where my parents hid the presents. I didn't look at them out of respect. Because I didn't want to ruin that moment of finding out what they were.
I knew they were hidden in the basement because, 8 days of presents, and every night we're standing in the kitchen. Mom goes down to the basement. We watch her go down there. She comes back up with presents.
You'd go down there and you couldn't find them?
I would go down there the day before Hanukkah looking. I couldn't find shit. I'd go down there during Hanukkah. I couldn't find shit. I don't know where the hell she hid those things. I still don't know. Maybe I should ask her.
Yeah, I knew where my parents hid all of them. I just didn't look at them.
They hid it in the basement, some tricky place. And it was...
Of course, I remember my parents taking me to see Santa Claus, and I remember every time just thinking, why are they putting me through this? It's obviously some fat old guy making minimum wage.
Yeah, I always knew it was a fat old guy making minimum wage. There was no question about that.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah, but I've also a nice little aside here. In terms of the word atheism, a lot of people confuse it. Atheism is not anti-theism. They're similar, but anti-theism is the belief that there is nothing supernatural, or at least that there are no religious things or no gods, or however you want to define theism. Atheism is effectively the belief that there aren't anything because there's no evidence, or there's the similar agnosticism that you believe you can't know and therefore you don't care.
Yeah, to me, I don't care what you believe. I mean, if you believe in the flying spaghetti monster for real, or if you believe in the Christian guy, it doesn't matter. What matters is how you live your life. If you live your life as if there is an all-powerful, all-seeing God who will punish you, and the actions you take are based on your fear of some imaginary thing, then you're living your life in a very different way from someone who makes decisions based on things that happen in the real world and real consequences. And one kind of person is very dangerous, and one kind of potentially very dangerous. And the other kind is quite likely much less dangerous and, in fact, beneficial to the world as a whole. And, that's what really matters to me. It's like, are you a crazy nut who's going to, go blow up an abortion center because you believe some crazy batshit? Or are you someone who's going to go, research some science because you know that there ain't other shit out there?
That was almost eloquent until you said the words, there ain't other shit out there.
There ain't other shit out there.
That was horrid. I don't know what to say to that. That was just horrid.
Yeah.
And I'm very much more philosophical. I mean, I think a lot about where does my consciousness come from and where is it going and what did anything make it? Was it always there? Was it formed? Is it just physical? Is it some quantum thing I don't know about? And all those sorts of things.
I'd like the answers to those questions, but really, even if I had all of them, they really wouldn't affect,
See, I guess, what?
Life practically.
I think that's one of the big parts of Gnosticism is the idea that if there is a creator or if there isn't a creator, it doesn't matter because what you're observing happens the same. And the theory you have about what you're observing doesn't require the creator because you found another alternate solution. Therefore, it doesn't matter if the creator exists or not, so you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. But,
I'm not a Gnostic. I'm just saying that's what Gnosticism is.
I'm not 100% with that, but I care.
I am a philosophical solipsist and basically nothing more.
It's mostly that I care about the physical world. That I can know that the physical real world that we are living in and podcasting in is true a lot more than I can know that some made up idea of a god is true.
See, I'm
gonna go with that, and atheism really fits with that, and the other things don't.
See, but I'm also a very speculative theologist. Like I always wonder that, like I'll just sit around and think like, what if this was true? And what if this thing was happening out there? What if there were gods, but they were like this? Or what if I'm God? Or what if Scott's God? Or what's going on?
I am God. I didn't let you know? Oh, shit.
See, the sad truth is that I'm God. I made you think you're God so you wouldn't bother me.
Shits. Or I made you think you were God. You could think, oh.
And you know what? I put the poison in both cups.
Oh, craps. Yeah.
But I think about those things a lot. And I said this a lot in this episode, but I got to say it again because people always seem, when we have these arguments in the forums, to selectively read what we post. Like, I'll say something like, religion is not true. And someone will be like, blah, 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 blah. There's a chance, philosophy. And I have to say something like, I didn't say no philosophy, there's no chance of a God. I said, what you just said is not true. And here's evidence for that.
Yeah, people really got to pay attention to specific wordings of things when it comes to philosophical debates.
Yeah, believing something might exist is far different from being convinced something specific exists.
Yeah. I mean, if someone says to me, yeah, there might be a God, I'll go like, yeah, I'll give my argument about the chance of there being one so infinitesimally small that it's stupid to bet on it, but it isn't false that there could be. There could be some God, some all-powerful force who's making everything the way it is right now and is invisible to us.
See, I'm much more like, and I think is much more feasible, the idea that there are probably beings that are, I don't want to say higher or lower because that's all relative, but more powerful than us, but we're not interacting with them in any way we know. So even if we are interacting with beings like that somehow, we don't know it, we can't know it, we can't show it. Therefore, effectively, whether or not they exist or not, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, but
but I still like to think about whether or not they exist.
Yeah, my point is that if someone comes up to me and says, there is a guy named Jesus, and he did this and this and this, that is such a specific thing. It's not just like, yeah, there might be something. It's this specific thing is true with no evidence for it whatsoever. It's like, no, you're an idiot, shut up. It's like, goddamn, what, how could you, that's what I'm against, is when someone has this is the way it is. I got no way to prove it, but that's the way it is, and if you say otherwise, you're wrong, and you're going to hell.
Well, we could talk about this forever, and I know this was kind of fragmented, partly because we're actually really fucking tired.
I'm so goddamn tired.
I mean, one, this topic was a cop-out because we couldn't think of anything else tonight. Two, we're really tired.
It's also fan service.
Yeah, it's fan service because if you've been in our forums, you see that we have discussions like
this
all the time.
It's a popular topic of debate. But
there's not a lot of debate. There's mostly a lot of philosophical pondering and then a lot of jokes.
That's the best way. That's the way it should be.
But final closing bits here, not about this topic, but about Geeknights in general. We see a lot of you out there who are new. So one, welcome to Geeknights.
Hello. How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
If you've just started listening, I highly recommend you go to our website, www.frontrowcrew.com, and join the forums, because the forums are rocking.
Also, put a little thing on the Frapper map.
Yep, the Frapper map shows where our listeners are.
And send us an audio.
We have a lot of overseas listeners. So if you aren't in the United States, we know, and we think that's awesome. Don't be afraid to join the forums. They're not in any way U.S.-centric.
Yeah, and send us an audio with a little link there. What else can you do? You can send us an email, geeknights@frontrowcrew.com.
Yes, we respond to many of the emails we get, and at least remember, if you send us an email, even if we don't respond, we read it. I guarantee that we both not only read it, but we remembered it, and there's a good chance we'll address it someday in a Geek Bag.
Yeah, and also go to the website, frontrowcrew.com. Maybe you're listening to this on like some other site, like Yahoo Podcast or something. So go to frontrowcrew.com. Go there.
Yes, we have show notes. We have links to every news item and thing of the day we talk about, in addition to the forums and all the fun stuff.
Yep.
Links to like My Delicious in case you want to see what we're going to talk about ahead of time.
All right. I think the last thing I got to say is that next week, our favorite sport, ice hockey, begins the 2006-2007 season.
Hockey!
NHL I think it starts on like Tuesday or Wednesday, the first NHL games.
Now, we often do themed weeks, but we're not going to do a hockey-themed week because we know a lot of you don't care about hockey.
Yeah, and there's not much to say about hockey. I mean, what are we gonna? We're gonna turn this into like the sports show where we give the results of the games. I mean, you could listen to ESPN for that.
Yeah.
shit.
Plus, I mean,
and they're better at it than we are.
We're not big hockey. We're not big sports fans. We're much bigger video game fans.
Yeah, we're not gonna all of a sudden turn Thursday into sports day or anything.
But what we are going to do, because things of the day along these lines have been popular in the past, and several people have suggested this, we are going to do Hockey Fight Week for things of the day.
Because everyone knows the best part of hockey is the fighting.
So all next week,
all 8 things of the day are going to be hockey fights.
Nothing but hockey fights.
Nothing but hockey fights.
In fact, one of them is
In
going
fact,
to be...
they're going to be the top 8 hockey fights that we can find on YouTube and Google Video.
Yes, except one of them that I'm going to talk about. There's no video of it that I know, but I can describe it. Let me just say, more people than just the players were fighting by the end of it.
Okay.
And that was Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for our opening theme.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. If you like our podcasts, you'll love our forums. Make sure you visit them. You can send your email feedback to geeknights@gmail.com. And if you want, you can leave us a voicemail at 206-333-1537.
Geeknights airs every weeknight, Monday through Thursday.
Geeknights is recorded with absolutely no studio and no audience. But unlike those other talk shows, it's actually recorded at night.